Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Can I Have a Word, the podcast that explores language and its impact on our identity. I am your host, Carl James, and I'm really looking forward to our episode today. So today's episode is going to be an exploration of what often holds us back from being our authentic selves. There's usually a moment that occurs before we decide to let the world see us for who we really are. It's quiet, but heavy. And it's full of questions we don't always have the answers to. Like, what if they misunderstand me? What if they reject me? What if being who I really am changes where or if I belong? We spend so much of our lives shaping what we show and hiding what we think might be too much, too complicated, or too different. But the truth is, most of us are craving the freedom to show up fully, to live without the constant negotiation, to step out from behind the carefully constructed image and risk being known. That longing and the weight that comes with it is where today's conversation begins. My guest today is my friend, Bomopregha Julius. She is a first-generation Nigerian American from right here in New York City who values family, friendship, and community. She is a housing finance attorney specializing in affordable housing. In her personal life, she enjoys spending quality time with loved ones while cherishing life's simple joys. In today's episode, we're going to sit in the tension between protection and authenticity and ask what becomes possible when we choose to be fully seen. And with that, I would like to welcome Bomo to the podcast. Hey, Bomo.
Hey, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I'm excited.
Yeah, we've talked about this for a little while, and so now here we are. So many things I want to know. So many things I already know about you, but then there's some other things that I'm going to get to know a little bit later. But for anyone who's first joining the podcast, I always like to start with the story of your name, and that can mean anything that you want to share relative to how your name came to be, what does it mean, origins, anything that you want to share about your name. And I already shortened it to Bomo, so you can explain that too.
Lovingly Bomo.
Yes.
So I have a traditional Nigerian name, a traditional Ija name. All Nigerian American children who have traditional names always go through the pain of having your name called on the roster in school and holding your breath because of the faces and the, oh my God, I just can't.
And
can you just tell me?
Yeah.
Or can I call you? And you're just like, no, you can't call me anything.
The name that I was given, yes.
So I always had like a tough relationship with my name. It took me a very long time to accept it in its full capacity. I didn't like that people called me other things. I didn't like that people shortened it, but I had to come to embrace the name. So Bomopregha Julius, I am named after my grandmother on my paternal side and my maternal great-grandmother. And I've always had like a love-hate relationship with the meaning of the first name. So Bomopregha means she is mine to keep.
Ooh, that is.
And so for me, I was always like, I'm fiercely independent. I do my own things.
I don't need to be
kept. I'm no one's to keep.
Taking it quite literally.
Literally. But it wasn't until like a trip to Africa, to Nigeria 8 years ago, I was speaking to my family about our family history, actually putting pen to paper. I got a second meaning for the first name. It means that which you do not give. So if you take both meanings to mean this is a person you cherish, this is a person you enjoy. And for me, Bomopregha has become my persona. I lean into the things that make me great. I'm kind, I'm caring, I'm warm, I'm loving, I'm hopeful, I'm fiercely optimistic, and I am like rainbows and sparkles wrapped into this little human body.
Oh, I mean, come on. I say yes to all of that. All of that is true.
Yeah. And so my second name is like my superhero name, Samboye. I knew before I came. So
wow,
it's
that's
a prophetic
powerful.
name.
Yeah.
It's a name that in which I have been promised the gift of knowing what is to come and having the wisdom to deal with it. And it's cool because that's my great grandmother's name. And from what I hear, she was also fiercely independent and she was a petite woman, but people feared her.
Mm,
And so for me to be given the name, it's become like my hidden strength, the strength that I carry, and also the gift that I get to give to the world.
absolutely, which is why
Yeah.
it should not be shortened. Now, tell me honestly,
Yeah.
I've called you Bomo because
Bomo.
that's how I was introduced to you. But would you prefer Bomopregha? Would you prefer people use the
No,
longer version?
it's not that. I do prefer that you learn the name, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
like coming back to the roster, so many people are so afraid to mispronounce the name that they forget that they're not learning the name. They're erasing you in a sense. And so the avoidance of saying my whole name is an erasure of who I am.
Absolutely.
And so, yes, you can lovingly get to call me Bomo. You can lovingly get to call me Bomes. That's another nickname. But if you don't know my name, then you don't know me.
I mean, we could almost end the show right there. But yes, absolutely. Which is why I like asking people the story of their name because names are powerful and they have meaning and there's a reason why it was given to you. Whether you accepted it 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when you were born, like it tells so much about who you are. And so like I completely respect that.
Yeah, and in my cultural sense, it is a purposeful intention. Children are named traditional names with meanings because they hold such cultural history for us. And so, as we will discuss a little bit later, related to my story, being an immigrant child and having the story of migration, my name is what I keep. My name is what I carry. And it's the thing that connects me to a place I may never know. And so names are very important. They travel with you. They travel through generations. They continue to last. And without even a story, it's the thing that you continue to remember from people.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're from right here in New York City.
I am.
Born and raised.
Born and raised.
Yes. Talk a little bit about what that was like, just being a child of New York City.
So I had a compounding New York City experience. My mother raised us. I'm one of 4 children alone. She was a working
Single
parent.
mother.
Yeah, she was a single mother. She was a working parent. The first 3 children are a year apart. And obviously, as we got older, we decided to embrace our own interests. And so we definitely went to 3 different schools at some point. And so my mom had to trust New York City in a way that a lot of parents do raising their kids here. We started taking the train as young as 6, 7, and 8 by ourselves. And interacting with the city that like had all of the promises of everybody who lives here, but also all of the fears of everyone who lives here. And my mother, being so foreign from a very small rural place in Nigeria, had to trust that her kids were okay. And so New York frames me. It makes me who I am in another way, right? It like challenged me very early on going to school.
It challenges all of us.
Learning the schools, learning the subway system and like how to navigate a city that is so large but becomes so small at the same time because you get into the routine, you start to see the same people.
Yeah, becomes familiar.
It's familiar. It's you can do anything. So you see all of the paths and you're frequently being challenged to pick which path you're going to continue on and whether you're going to stay here or not. And that's the challenge. Some people, this city is not for them. For other people like me, you become lifelong and you get to see it from various different perspectives, from the child to now the adult who is relearning the city and learning new people and new friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I call it the greatest city to grow up in, and I someday would hope to raise my children here too.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, New York, people have the love-hate relationship with it, but I think for various reasons, many of which
Yeah.
are justified, but there's no city like it. I will say that.
No city like it in the world. And I
Absolutely.
think it also prepared me for the life that I continue to live.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah,
All right, so we've got things to talk about.
we
So
do.
let's dive in. Bomo, can I have a word, please?
My word is fear.
Fear. And we kind of alluded to it in the intro, but a very basic definition of fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain, or a threat. But I think for the purposes of this conversation, the fear isn't about physical survival. It's more about, I'd say, survival of the self.
Right.
And, I'm curious, in choosing that word fear, basically, how do you define it or how do you see it in your life? What is fear to you?
So for me, fear has always been the thing following me, the thing that I feel that I try to figure out how to suppress. Um, it wasn't an act of suppression. It's just something that I'm coming to now that I had been actively suppressing that feeling because you have this desire to be a person and pick this lane, kind of like I told you, growing up in New York City, you figure out what your lane is going to be. And you figure out the steps, you figure out like what you need to do. And so at each step of the way, you're having to compromise parts of you in order to move forward. And sometimes you're directly asked or challenged to be vulnerable in ways that you are not necessarily ready to, because ultimately you're trying to get to the end of the path like everyone else.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about, not to interrupt you,
Yeah.
just to talk a little bit about like when the fear started or when you first experienced it? When did you notice it?
I think for me, I noticed it as a child, and I developed coping methods around it. So one thing about me that many people come to learn as they get to know me is I've always had problems with sleep. And one of the things that I've had problems with, so as a child, it was nightmares. It was being afraid at night and being woken up at night. And so as an adult, I still have that happen, but I'm better able to cope with it.
Okay.
And sometimes it is literally that something is I'm trying to face something. So even something like this interview we talked about before we got started, I feel fearful. And so I was a performer and I always had like the stage jitters before I got on stage or anytime I wanted to publicly speak and all of these things.
Which is common.
It is common. And I don't think, what I will caveat to say, because I think when people see a person afraid, they have this view of what fear should look like. And so there is also this aspect that you don't look like you're afraid. You don't look like
Story of
it.
my life. Are you kidding me?
You don't look like you are afraid to do something. You seem
because you exude a certain
confident.
confidence.
Right.
You walk in.
Right.
You either have a smile or
right.
nothing bothers you. That whole.
So I think the biggest thing is over time for me, because I was always afraid, I've learned ways to cope. One of them is my smile. I smile a lot when I'm nervous. Sometimes I kind of self-talk. I like say, okay, Bomo, you can do this. You can do this. You can do this. And I kind of like push myself forward, even when I don't know what direction to go in. And so I think that was the initial presentation. I think recently, I've had like some tough things happen in my life, job loss, compacted with just like my familial life and like the struggles around that.
Right.
And just also my personal struggles. Like, how am I coping with all of this?
Does your fear manifest itself in a form of anxiety, or is that too far? Like, is it like what does it look like?
So I think it is anxiety. I think that is what I've come to the conclusion of fairly recently. I've always been anxious.
Mm.
And I think I'm really good at masking. And that is the word I got through therapy. I'm really good at making myself look like nothing is wrong, even though it feels like internally the world is falling apart.
Chaos.
It's chaos. And, as we've discussed before off camera and off of the screen, I've had health problems. I think that those health problems are a direct manifestation for me suppressing, me masking, me trying to present a person who seems to have it all together when it seems like the world is literally falling apart. So yes, I think it's anxiety. I think it's worry.
Yeah.
I think it's all wrapped into one. The root of it, though, is I'm afraid of the unknown in a deeply profound way, kind of related to the name, right?
Yeah.
So I knew before I came, but I don't know.
Right? You're like, I don't actually know.
I don't know. And so I'm afraid of the possibilities. And sometimes you can think through the possibilities, and I've gotten adept at that. And so that's how I manage and that's how I mask. But there is still so many unknowns. So like when you experience a life event like job loss, you're like, what is going to happen? And you start to tell yourself, which is like the common thing to tell yourself, it will be okay.
Yep.
But you don't know when.
You don't know when.
You don't know
You don't
when.
exactly how. What is it going to look like on the other side? Trust me, I've gone through it, currently going through it.
Yeah.
So I feel you. Can we talk a little bit more about the job loss?
Yeah.
As much as you want to share, but like, how did going through that sort of take you down this, maybe not so great path with the fears of the unknown? Like, what happened there?
So I'm first generation, and I think fear is inherent in that experience. We have parents who came from a world that was very different from the world that they're raising their children in, and they're trying to guide them using the tools that they have from that other world. And their kids are learning a world that is very different from the world that their parents grew up in, and trying to refashion these tools to work in real time in this world.
Right.
And so, like many Nigerian Americans, I was a high achiever. I continue to be a high achiever. And I thought that success should look a certain way.
Because it was expected.
It was expected. Yeah. It was what I expected for myself, but it was also like what was set out for me. I happened to be one of the four. So I'm a lawyer.
You did it.
I did it. I checked those boxes. But quickly I learned that my legal career wasn't just the title. It wasn't just, I'm an attorney, I'm a lawyer. It is where you work. What is like acceptable for work and what is deemed successful. And so I had this trajectory that was not traditional for many attorneys, in that I did not go to the law firm immediately after law school. And I had to kind of like fashion the career that was deemed successful from a not so traditional route. And
gotcha.
I was fairly successful at that. So the last place that I worked was a law firm. And so I finally got to check the box. I finally got to say, oh, this is what success for an attorney in America, in the West, looks like.
So you were there.
I was there. I made it. But what I didn't estimate was what toll it would take for me to say I made it. how much of myself was I willing to sacrifice in order to say, I've made it? No one could have prepared me for that.
Were you, and I would say that's probably something that a lot of people don't necessarily realize,
Yeah.
but were you aware at all while you were, maybe at the law firm, like the things that you were doing and going through, you were like, there's a lot of work involved here to maintain this? Or were you just kind of in the grind doing it and it's only in kind of hindsight that you saw like how much you had to sacrifice?
No, it was happening in real time. So quickly because of how I transitioned. I transitioned from state practice to a national practice. And from maybe tens of millions of dollars of deals to like hundreds of millions of dollars in deals. So the scale was vast, and what was expected of me was vast. And I was doing this in a non traditional manner. And so now I'm having to learn what first year associates are having to learn, in addition to testing my substantive ability
Okay.
and my ability to learn new things. So very quickly, 6 months in, I learned I was struggling. I was suffering. I was feeling the weight of the transition.
Now, while you're, recognizing that, the
Mhm.
transition is maybe more difficult than you anticipated, were you even comfortable acknowledging that to, your supervisors, colleagues? Like when you talk about fear, like part of what I imagine when you're in a space like that where you're trying to, show that you are worthy of being there, you have just as much to offer as anyone else, you don't necessarily want to look like you can't measure up or you're not doing as well. So how do you navigate needing to sort of, maybe step up your own game, but like also trying to figure out how do I do that without looking like I don't know what I'm doing?
You suffer in silence.
Gotcha.
So classic move, and something that had been exemplified by my own mother and how she copes with the world. And so smiling, um, forcing myself to overwork while being extremely tired, extremely exhausted, learning like really quickly how to retool the information that is being given to me in real time while being completely miserable
Mm.
and completely isolated and happy that I am here, but also very sad about how it feels. And that sadness, like, increased
Grew.
to a magnitude that I'm still processing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot, especially if it feels like you're on your own and you don't necessarily have the resources that you need or want or deserve, quite frankly. And so,
Or even, I think the biggest thing when you said, how did the fear manifest? How did I even ask?
yeah,
Like, how do you even ask? You made it. You're supposed to be successful. You're supposed to learn. You're supposed to lean into these things. How do I now admit this is not working?
yeah, that's a tough place to be. Um, and you don't necessarily know how to move forward from that.
No. So what I did was what I always did, which is you come up with smaller steps. You come up with ways in which you're supposed to move forward. And in that way, thank you. In that way, I learn how to move forward. But I do what I've always done, which is to sacrifice myself and make myself smaller so that I can fit into whatever box this is supposed to be. Because for whatever reason, the fear of starting over, the fear of figuring it out, or the fear of admitting that this is not a good fit, this is not where I'm supposed to be, you force yourself into the box because that's what is expected of you. And that's what you were told. that you needed to do in order to be successful. And so you're like in this situation where you're convincing yourself that you're literally somebody else for the sake of this success and making this other person, this more authentic person, smaller.
Hide, invisible.
Hide.
Yeah.
And it became easy. It's something that I've done for a good portion of my career, my school career, whatever.
A lot of us have perfected that ability to just hide the parts of us that don't know as much, aren't feeling as great, because to your point, you're expected to know. You look like you know.
I look like I know.
The family, the ancestors, everybody is expecting you to just
They're expecting me to show up.
Yes.
I am the person who should show up. And I look back on it and I'm 5'8". I am not a small girl. And somehow I thought I should fit into a box that was only a foot by foot.
Ooh, girl, come on now. Mm-mm.
I made my voice smaller. Became a fraction of myself. I didn't change how I looked. I think I have like this edgy look. And I look the part, but
it works for you, trust me.
It works for me, but I wasn't myself. I was miserable.
So when did it all reach a boiling point, or how did it sort of culminate?
I think the biggest thing here is for you to keep motivating yourself to do something, for you to continue to move forward, you have to seek validation. You have to be validated in what you are either feeling or like that you're on the right track. So repeatedly, I was getting like performance reviews that were telling me, you're still not good enough. They were very not specific, in my opinion. They were very like repeatedly telling me I am not the person I know myself to be or know myself to show up to.
But without any concrete
details, without any like ways to go forward. And it, like in retrospect, I look back and I'm like, that was the quiet firing part of it. Make her come to the conclusion that she needs to go. It's not an outward, oh, she should go yet. It is that she has to come to the conclusion she needs to go, and our actions will get her to that point. And so I will say that the first time that happened was the end of last year. It was immediately apparent to me that nothing I was doing was going to make me successful at this place.
Yeah.
But the fear kicked in.
As it naturally would. Like, if you know that, once you realize that it's really not going to work here no matter what I do.
Right.
Then the question becomes, well, how do I move? How do I move from this? What am I moving toward? Do I know it's going to be better in that other place, whatever that other place is?
Right.
So that's a lot to wrestle with.
It was a lot to wrestle with, and no blueprint. Again, first generation American.
Yeah.
And so,
and shout out to the first gens. I am one of you. I see all of you. We are here. God bless our parents. They do the best that they can with what they know.
Right.
But some of these situations that we find ourselves in are quite unique.
Right.
And you don't have the legacy of, oh, when my grandfather worked at this place or when my dad did this. Like, you are doing it for the first time, and no one tells you like how to navigate that. Or you're looking for examples, but the examples aren't in your family necessarily.
The examples are not in your family. I would argue, as a Black person in America, the examples are not even in the community per se, or at least they're not spoken of.
They don't talk about it. Yeah, we don't talk about it.
Fear. We're grappled with fear on so many levels. And so, no, it didn't. It occurs to me that something is happening here that I can't deal with, that I can't fathom. But how do you unravel yourself from that? How do you get away from that? How do you rebuild this person who once was before this experience?
Yeah. So before we talk about the rebuild,
Yeah.
which we will get to, you mentioned earlier that you also deal with certain health challenges. And so I
Yeah.
wonder, with that kind of also existing in the, I won't even say the background, just
Mm-hmm.
existing in your life as well,
Mm-hmm.
how does, the feels around your health sort of add to the sort of existing fears that you already have around your professional situation and what you're dealing with in that
Oh, it
front?
would. So the interesting part is before I transitioned, I was actually, I have Graves' disease. So it's an autoimmune disease in which your body attacks the thyroid gland, creating the over, uh, your body starts to produce too much thyroid hormone. And so before I started this job, it was recommended because I had come out of remission so many times that I ablate my thyroid. So now we have to kill the organ in order for it to stop producing too much hormone because my body won't stop attacking it. And there is like, I would be in a vicious cycle of it doing that. And at that point, at the beginning of that year, I was on heart medication in addition to like managing extreme amount of stress. So I came from a stressful environment. And so this environment was supposed to be like
The antidote to
the
that.
antidote to that and some kind of like escape. And it was supposed to give me the things that I didn't have in this other environment. But it's playing out at the same time as me trying to get my health in order. I just had an ablation. I start this job. I immediately balloon because my body finally hits the point where it is not overproducing hormone, but it's underproducing hormone. And so the first 6 months of this job was me trying to re-regulate my body to feel normal again.
To navigating a new job.
In addition to navigating a new job and figuring out all that was happening. And I was in an amount of a stress that I cannot, like, I can't even express.
Most people can't even fathom doing one of those things, let alone navigating both at the same time. That's
I don't
damn near
know.
impossible.
It was, and I think I am the impossible. I am the person who frequently finds themselves in impossible situations. And so with that, I was like, okay, not only am I trying to figure out how to feel like me again, health wise, but also I am navigating a new space. And I'm having to show up to the new space and not reveal this thing about me because fear of I'm going to tell you that I have this health thing and it will be held against me at some point.
I mean, that's in corporate spaces that a lot of people fear that. I mean, even new mothers go through this thing of like, I don't want my family to look like they're
No.
impacting my ability to do my job. And so there's always this sort of hesitancy to like, how much of me do I share? Because if people see me in a particular light, what are they going to think of me then? And so, but in your case, like that's a very specific fear and legitimate because
It was legitimate. It became physical. So like immediately, like overnight, there was a physical manifestation of what was going on with my body. And it happened immediately. And so it got to a place where I did have to reveal this. And then I did have to trust that this job would protect me and understand me. And it was so hard to reveal like what was happening. But like the other thing about like autoimmunes and diseases like them is like a lack of understanding. People like really like they want to overly like protect you, but then at the same time, they don't really understand how it manifests.
Right.
And so they're like, what do you need? And you don't really have an answer for that because it doesn't present in a way that there is something that directly correlates with the symptoms I'm experiencing. So yes, I'm in an impossible situation.
While you were there at that job, did it feel like you were able to trust that they would support you, or was that not even?
I mean, I didn't have a choice. At this point, I got to a place where I couldn't hide that I was sick or
Right.
that I was not sick, but like trying to get my body to be normal again or average again, I should say. Um, and so I had to reveal the sickness and kind of hope that it would never be held against me. And I will say that they did not. They did not. But
They didn't hold it against you.
they didn't hold it against me. But what I will also say is some of that impacted like my ability to show up, to process. And I wasn't as forthcoming in saying that it was affecting my ability to show up and process. Took me a long time before I kind of like was like, this is not the thing that is making me crazy. This is not the thing that's whatever. So I revealed it because I had to, but I was fearful of revealing too much because I felt like then I couldn't be taken seriously or I wouldn't get enough
So
work.
while you're dealing with that at work and you have the health issues on top of it, were you sharing these feelings with your family, friends? Like, who are you leaning on, if anyone, outside of what you're dealing with in these, very tricky spaces? Like, were did you feel like you could do that with anyone? No.
No, I think that that's like a marker of like who I am as a person. I mean, as much as I am vulnerable and I speak and I am like forthcoming, I'm also very private. And so there is aspects of the story in the past 2 years that I don't fully reveal to most people. They encounter the person that they encounter, and I leave it at that. And it is not that I feel like I'm hiding, it's that we are different people with different people. Um, and so I kind of, again, continue to silently suffer. I continue to like take on too much.
I will say, I think we met maybe like 2 years ago, a year.
Almost about the same
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
yeah. And kind of to your point, I feel like when I met you, you were ebullient, full of life, like just the smile, like,
Yeah.
and not in a phony way. It felt very genuine, natural, believable. And I have been, people have said the same thing about me, like
Mhm.
exuding a certain type of, I don't want to say aura, that sounds,
Mhm.
but like a confidence of sorts where it seems like you've got everything under control. And even if it's a little out of control, you're the type of person who will like figure it out and fix it and like can, get it back on track. And so when you started telling me your story, like outside of,
Yeah.
this context, I remember being like, of course I would never see it. Why? Like, I'm as good as she is at hiding things. Like, most of us
Yeah.
try to be. And so it's enlightening and revealing when people do sort of allow themselves to be fully seen, but it's something that we all practice and get good at because we feel like we have to, and it's protective. So,
And
no,
it's generational.
absolutely.
It's modeled for you. So you watch your parents, you watch your grandparents. You never really know their full stories either.
And when you try to ask, you don't always get the answers.
Oh, you know. And so you learn to model that behavior as well because you don't know a behavior in which you're allowing what's the bad that is happening to you to be the story because it can never be.
It's never allowed to be.
And some people would argue as well as they would say Bomo is so strong. But no. I am not strong. I'm just great at masking.
That is a trap. The word strong, like even the trope around the strong Black woman or the strong Black man, it's like because you're used to dealing with shit, you get good at dealing with shit.
Right.
It's not like you have some special superpower that makes you able to tolerate pain and suffering. And it's when it's presented to you, you learn how to deal. But it's something we learn.
Yeah. And there's no time. There's no time to fixate on what you don't have. There's only time to fixate, again, this optimism, this forced optimism in certain sense, which is like a coping mechanism. It's okay. It's okay. It becomes a response. And once you say it's okay, all of this other stuff that you're dealing with, it has to be okay. Yeah. It's just okay because I'm trying to quiet you and not say how I feel. It's okay because I have to make it okay. There's no time for me to feel and make this world fall apart. I have to be the reason it stays together.
Yes, and that pressure is a pressure that many of us have put on ourselves and still do. And so now we're going to move into the rebuilding part. Of the conversation. And so talk to me a little bit about how you've been navigating that part. Obviously, you have since separated from your company. You are, health-wise managing that.
Yeah.
Simultaneously trying to figure out what comes next. How has the rebuilding of Bomo and the sort of allowing Bomo to be more visible, how has that been going?
I think the first step for me was I knew I had to go back to therapy. I wasn't in therapy for a while. I usually see therapy as like a response to something that is happening when I feel like something is out of control and that I can't fix it.
Like acute.
Right, acute. And so also the bad thing about that is that when you feel like the acute has passed, your relationship with therapy kind of changes too, because you're like, all right, I got through that. I'm good. I'm so good.
I learned that trick a long time ago. Don't do that. Keep that person on standby.
Right. So it's funny because again, the reality that something was happening and I didn't know how to fix it set in at the end of last year. And so for me, at the beginning of the year, I was like, okay, so this thing is going to happen at some point this year. You either have to find another job or whatever. Actually, the conclusion that I would be fired or terminated didn't actually occur to me. But I knew that the separation had to happen. I just didn't know how it was going to happen.
Right. It's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming either because I am going to be the reason why the separation happens or no, the alternative didn't occur to me. The second part of it was, what do you want? You don't know the answer to that question. And you need help defining that. You need help figuring that out. And that is going to be a process in and in itself. Like you have to lean into this. So I found a really great therapist who is also first generation American, which
check the boxes.
Checks the boxes. Regine, she's awesome. She's amazing. And she was the first time I didn't have to explain all of the things that I am talking about. I didn't have to explain the cultural nuance. I didn't have to explain
she just gets it. She knows.
How I'm coping, the masking, all of it. I didn't have to explain. And so we started to rebuild before the thing happened. But that doesn't mean that I'm out of the woods. Stuff is still happening professionally. It's unraveling. I come to find out that, no, this is a termination. And so how do I navigate this? In real time, I'm having to figure out the steps to navigating it. And the first thing that happens is you convince yourself it's not happening. And so I was working just as hard. And like pushing myself to the same degree I was before and not pushing myself in the direction that I needed to, which is to figure out where to go and what to do. It was more so, well, this is what I know.
I need to save face here.
I will save face here. Another part of the rebuilding that came from my conversations with Regine was I fight falling. That is a part of the immigrant story. I cannot fail. I am not allowed to fail. There is no failure. So now I am seemingly facing failure or what seems like failure.
Right, which is not an option.
It's not an option. And so I have a moment with myself. I reflect in real time because the things are happening. And I said, Bomo, you have to fail. You can't fight the failure anymore.
But did you have to call it failure? Or is that just what it felt like?
It's not failure. I called it the fall.
Fall is better. I like that.
I had to not be afraid to fall.
Yeah.
I think as children, you learn, like, especially after the first time you fall, you scrape your knee, you're repeatedly told to get back up, get back up. You don't get a moment to cry. You don't get a moment to hold your knee in pain. You don't get a moment to do any of that.
Dust
you have to get back up.
Keep going.
And you have to keep on going. Get back on that bike. Do whatever you need to do. But the fall will not be the end of the story. And that is a part of the upbringing. That is a part of the cultural history. That is what we are, the resiliency. But for the first time in my life, I was like, you've been on this road where you have tried to avoid falling your whole entire life because of the fear that the fall will be the end. And so now you have to let this fall happen. You will not apply to a job and seek the next step. You will not have an answer to everyone's questions. So what is next? You will allow this to be the thing. You will lean into the world that you're currently in. You will feel the emotions that you have tried to avoid and try to save face because you have to do that to be stronger the next time.
That is powerful. And yet so many people don't let themselves go through that. How did you do that for yourself?
Oh, it wasn't easy. I went back and forth. So maybe a month before I was to leave the firm, I had a conversation with Regine and I was like, I think I want to go to Senegal. I didn't even actually book the trip. I didn't figure out the steps to figure out how to get there. I just was like, I'm going to go to Senegal for a month. And she was like, Bomo, that's amazing.
I fully endorse this.
You should do it. Yes. And she was like my biggest cheerleader. But again, fear. I wasn't willing to face it yet. I wasn't willing to actually fall. And so it took weeks, even a month before I was willing to face the fall. I was in DC with my brother, my sister-in-law, and my niece. And I had gone back and forth with myself. And this is now a month later. And I was like, okay, I don't even know. I can't even remember the conversation that sparked it or what. But I sat there with my computer and I booked the trip to Senegal. It was less than 4 weeks from the time I booked it.
I'm always envious of people who do that. I don't have it in me, but so help me. Sometimes you just need to do it.
So, no, I did it because I don't do that. I'm just like you.
I was like, we don't do that.
No. There's always the plan for the plan for
exactly.
the plan.
The backup.
Yes.
Is everything right? Do we have the time?
I was like, ooh, okay. The other part of it is I've never been to Senegal. I am from an Anglophone African country, not a Francophone African country.
Language.
So there is a language thing. But something I have to tell you, like, fear has always been my solution when I feel like the world is falling apart. And I realize that fear has also become my superpower. So, as much as I'm fearful, to make myself feel the better, I have always done the thing that makes me afraid the most. Because if I can conquer that, if I am successful at that, then whatever just happened to me isn't big enough.
Pales in comparison.
It pales in comparison. And so I booked the trip to the place I've never been, where my language skills wouldn't serve me, to a cultural background that I've never experienced.
Yeah. I will tell you, I do an episode on, my time in college and when I was kind of going through my own sort of upheaval, just coming to terms with like my identity, sexuality, and all these things. And I was at Duke, and I talk about how like I'm at a place where I was supposed to be excelling academically, and everything's
Right.
supposed to be great, and you're supposed to be meeting all your friends and having this great time. And I was having none of those things. I was not doing well, and I'm somebody who is used to doing well.
Mhm.
And what did I do? I created a study abroad opportunity whereby I could go to Uganda for a semester.
Right.
Ask me who I know in Uganda. Absolutely no one. But to your point, I knew I needed to shake things up in a way that would almost scare me
Right.
so that I couldn't plan and I couldn't control, and
Right.
you just had to live and do and
Yeah.
experience.
An experience and facing the thing that you're not willing to face under the circumstance. So I've had the rug pulled from under me. I don't know what to do. I don't know what the answer is. And here I am with this. I'm gonna scare myself some more. I'm gonna scare myself some more.
Leaning into it.
I'm gonna lean into it because again, I have to accept the fall. I have to accept it. I have to fall. I can't fight the fall. I just have to fall. And so we're gonna go forward. We're gonna take the trip. We're gonna get there. I backed out of the month. So again, the fear
We delayed it a
still
little.
grappled. It still did. It wasn't a month trip. It ends up being 2 weeks.
Mm.
Because again, I was still allowing my fear to like scare me from doing the thing. But 2 weeks is like it's still more than I've ever done by myself.
Yeah. So,
And fast forward to the trip, it was life changing for me. It was a beautiful experience that assured me of who I am and who I continue to be. I leaned into this experience. I used my very basic French to get around a country where most people speak well off. They actually speak French secondarily.
You're like, great. Even French isn't helping.
Even better. The other part of it is that they saw me. They saw me. I was a person that they felt was deserving of their protection, of their comfort, of their kindness. Um,
All the things that you had been missing.
all the things that were missing, yes. And that was beautiful to me. I just got to see people living, surviving, and moving forward in a way that was very different from my experience in the States and from my experience growing up. I just leaned into the experience of just allowing the day to take me, not having a plan for the day, but like understanding that the experience should be just something I'm open to. In that, I met so many people who didn't know this story, who didn't know why I was in Senegal, who didn't understand what even brought me to come to Senegal. But extended so much care, so much kindness and loving behaviors to me to show me that I'm worthy. And I'm worthy just because.
Right.
Not because I have to prove something, not because I have to be something.
Without a qualifier, without anything, just because you are.
And I didn't have to be in a box. That was like the most profound part of it. There was no expectations. There was an understanding as the daughter of Africa that there were limits. There were certain things I couldn't do out of respect for the cultural norms.
Right. Don't get wild.
Don't get wild. But also that we are your collective family. We are your communal family. We will show you who you are when the world tells you differently. So you have to take us with you. And you will always have us with you.
And remember that they're there.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I'm so glad that you had that experience in Senegal. Now, as we start to get ready to close,
Yeah.
went by so fast. I'm like, damn. You talk so much about, on the one hand being fearful, but also recognizing that it's the thing that you kind of lean into. So I'm curious now, obviously you're sort of still in process grappling with a lot of things, but what is your approach now to fear, or how do you think about it for yourself in this sort of new moment in your life where you're willing to be more open, a little bit more visible, more vulnerable, more true to who Bomo actually is? What does fear mean to you now?
I think that it's still the dichotomy. I am afraid. So when I am faced with the things that I don't want to do, I know it's coming from a place of fear. When I don't want to speak up to tell you how I actually feel because something that is happening is uncomfortable or whatever, I know it's coming from a place of fear. But at the same time, I think I have to actively engage with the fear. That is what makes me great. I am able to step into a place of fear and darkness and make light there. It makes me who I am and who I continue to be. It is my motivator. Um, Realistically, I think going forward, I just have to understand the limits of that fear. I can't let fear allow others to tell me who I am. I have to be very clear about like where my values lie and what I value and be protective of those things even when I'm fearful. Because if I let those things go, then I'm no longer the person that I think of myself to be. And through the process of like this experience in the past couple of years or even few years, I had given so much of myself out of fear that I became a shell of myself. And that cannot be. And that was the thing I asserted when I returned from the continent, because the continent reminded me of who I am and that cannot be sacrificed.
And taking it back for you.
I have to take it back.
Yeah. I am just going to say, first of all, thank you for being so open and honest and vulnerable. Your story very much reminds me of things that I have been through myself, and talk about fear, like me even doing this.
Yeah.
If you had asked me a year ago if I would be out here sharing all my business in every episode, never. But there's such value in sharing these stories, because one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast is because, many reasons, but I didn't want people having experiences like I had and not having an outlet, not having an example. We talk about not having a roadmap. I want to be at least one person's roadmap. And so if I can share something that might help somebody maybe make a different choice, or at least know that they can make a different choice, maybe they can speak up a little bit more. Maybe they can say that I'm struggling, whatever it is. if I can help do that, then I want to do that. And I think you being here, and quite frankly, every guest who comes here and shares their story, that's kind of what the goal is.
Yeah.
And so I hope you may not know how powerful your story is just in the sharing of it.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, some of us who feel like we have to be martyrs and like go through the thing on our own, like, you have a village.
I have a whole continent.
You have an actual continent.
I have a whole continent. And, you know, I think, one, thank you for giving me the space to do that. It's happening in real time. So for me to even be this vulnerable, it was facing the fear. It's facing the fear of actually telling what is happening and what has happened. The last part of that is, yes, it exemplifies for the next person that you can be open, you can be vulnerable, you can face your fears, you can fall and not get back up and cry and do all of the things and figure out the steps to getting yourself back up. But it is also important to know that the people behind you, the people around you, continues to be your biggest cheerleaders, even when they don't know. They don't know every detail of what is happening to you, but they are rooting for you, and they continue to root for you. And that in the universe helps kind of propel you forward. And I'm so much more thankful for that.
Absolutely. This episode, you know, as much as it's about acknowledging what fear is and what it can look like, it's also about not running from it, because fear thrives in silence.
It does.
And I think what you've been able to do, what I've tried to do, and what, you know, we're trying to encourage people to do is to interrogate fear in whatever it looks like for you, because I think that gives you access to a deeper truth, more authenticity that maybe you wouldn't otherwise have or see otherwise, even when it's terrifying as you know what. And I think also redefining your relationship with fear is something that I'm certainly taking away from this conversation, even though I didn't necessarily realize that that's what I've done.
Yeah.
But that's what we're doing, and you're doing, I'm doing, we're all trying to do. Yes.
It's active.
In the moment. And so thank you for doing that and being here and sharing. Really appreciate it.
Of course. I'm happy to do it. And it's a part of the journey. It is a part of my journey. So thank you.
It's a journey we're all on. So
yeah.
We're just going to leave it there.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for joining, and I'll see you on the next episode of Can I Have a Word? Bye.